Hello, my name is Michael Parker and welcome to Antidote. This week we're going to talk about Hollywood, science fiction, making movies, writing big movies, and we're going to talk about Fight Club. That's right, we're going to break Rule 1 and 2 of Fight Club by talking about Fight Club, but that's not all. I'm very pleased to have in the Lip Studios today acclaimed screenwriter, Mr. Jim Uhls. Jim, welcome to Antidote.
Thank you, Michael.
You and I have been talking back and forth for a little while, and I'm so pleased that we finally were able to get you in. It's funny, initially, you were a bit curious, a bit skeptical about why I wanted you on the show. And it's funny because to me, I really wanted you on the show. And the reason being is because of the subject matter that I'm interested in and the people that I meet doing this show, a lot of rabble-rousers, thought leaders, people out there trying to shake it up. A lot of people like Fight Club. So my question to you is, why do you think the appeal of Fight Club exists? Is it just a good movie or is it something deeper than that?
Well, I'll tell you, the night of the premiere, I went around with Ross Bell, one of the producers, and we went to theaters. And we started with a theater in Santa Monica, then we went to Westwood, then we went to the Cinerama Dome, just to see how people were reacting and everything. The first place we went, Santa Monica, we were actually watching the first part of the movie, and then we decided, let's go to the next place. But we came out, and another theater had Fight Club in it, and it was letting out. So people had seen it. Mm-hmm. The first thing I hear, two women, very normal looking in their 50s, you know, not hipsters or anything, saying it's one of the best things they've ever seen. That's the first reaction I saw. Now, we thought this is something that appeals to especially young men. Mm-hmm. And it's generational, and it's about this lost generation. So that was the first reaction I saw.
Not a bad first reaction.
Right, but not from who I expected. And that has continued throughout the years. Cut to a few years ago, I'm at the Austin Film Festival, and I'm doing panels. One of the events is screenwriters sit at tables, and small groups, 5, 6, 7 people come and sit down at each table so they can have an intimate conversation with the screenwriter. And then those people get up and move to a different table and sort of like thing. So at one point, a group sits down, and there's a woman and her 14-year-old son. And she says, is it okay if he sits here with me when we talk? Because Fight Club is both of our favorite movies. And I'm like, and he was born the year it came out, or around there, right? So it appeals on such a demographic that I don't know how to explain it. I don't really know. I would understand it hitting young men, right? But everyone else I don't have an answer for, really.
It is a fantastic film, and I meet so many people, and there's several of them in this room who when I told them you were coming on, everybody was excited. And one of my good friends, who's also a filmmaker, Dylan Avery, who's been on here, he's like, oh, please tell him I really love the film. It affected so many people. And I read a quote where Edward Norton was saying that he thought it was a generational film or generational statement. But when I look at it, it's more about what you're talking about, because a generation to me connotes a group of people born during a particular point in time.
Right.
But to me, the film resonates with a lot of different types of people at a particular time, if that difference makes sense.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly.
I know that I'm a baby boomer, so I'm not sure if I'm the generation that he was talking about that film initially appealing to, but it certainly resonated with me. And my daughter, who's 13, is studying film, and like there's a little kid in one of her classes, and like he talks about, oh my God, Fight Club's my favorite film. Yes, it is across board.
Right. So we did think it's a generational statement. I first read the book. It was a manuscript. A publisher had it, but they hadn't published it. They didn't, on the shelves yet.
It was a galley or?
Galley. And a friend in the business sent it over and said, read this and track it and see if it ever gets set up anywhere, because you got to try to get the adaptation job. And I read the book, and I was just stunned. Things went through my mind like Clockwork Orange.
Yes.
Very
good analogy. I can see that.
And I thought, it would be fun to be paid to write this, but it'll never be made. But that's all right. I just want to get the writing gig because it'll be fun to be paid to write it. Never, never, ever thought there's any possibility of it getting made. That was initially. Then when it started to come together, where David Fincher was on board, then it was like, oh, wow, this could really happen.
Absolutely.
And it got better and better and more likely, and finally it actually did happen.
I read an interesting story when you were talking about the initial, I don't know if I'd even call it a pitch meeting, but it was, you were going to be there, Fincher was going to be there, and I guess several of the producers. You had an interesting strategy for that meeting.
Oh, yeah. I don't like pitching.
It's a tough job. It's hard to do.
So one of the ways I try to get around it is I invoke sort of a conversation, eliciting participation from everybody. And it turns into everybody talking about what the film should be, what it can be, and it winds up not being me pitching something straightforward. So
they get to start imagining the film they want to make.
Right. But I make it a conversation. I make it very participatory, but it's not structured like a pitch. I'm not pitching anything. It's just, and so it's, I guess it was kind of a underhanded way of avoiding having to pitch.
I think it's genius. I've actually heard the Rolling Stones do the similar thing in their meetings, because one time Keith Richards said, he goes, when we have a meeting, Mick and I just sit there and we act like we're pissed off. We let everybody else talk to us, and that's how we control meetings. And in a way, that's a good way of getting everybody to get things out on the table and control the conversation. But regardless, I wanted to say one thing about this picture. Whenever I see this particular illustration, I think this is just wallpaper that someone made. Edward Norton looks like Lee Harvey Oswald to me a little bit. I don't know why, if it's just me, but I'm like, I get a bit of a Lee Harvey Oswald thing from him.
That's there.
Was that intentional in a way in the casting?
No, definitely not.
Oh, okay.
No. But it might have been intentional in this person's drawing.
Well, that's just a humorous aside, but when I was looking at that, when I was coming up with the artwork, I like that struck me. I also heard that there were some other interesting casting choices that could have been made, which would have made this a different film. Tyler Durden could have been Sean Penn.
Well, I mean, a lot of people were talked about.
Yeah.
And we talked about all the greatest actors that that could fit the role. So that discussion included a lot of people, actually.
And Helena Bonham Carter, Marla's Singer character, I'd heard that the network at the time wanted Winona Ryder, and I believe that Fincher wanted Janeane Garofalo, maybe?
Well, he was considering her, yeah. And several other people, I think, and Winona. But he just got inspired to cast Helena, and she had been in the Woody Allen movie where she played an American with an American accent and all that, and it was a brilliant piece of casting, as it turns out. I mean, she was just phenomenal, as was everybody.
As was everybody. Listen, I admit it, I like crazy chicks. I thought she was hot as fire in that film, man. It's like I thoroughly enjoyed her portrayal of Marla Singer in the film.
Yeah, she was great.
This particular photo, and I know people have said this before, but another thing that's so unusual about this film and eerily prophetic, they end the film, and this is 99, looking at these buildings that are about to come down.
Right.
It's just so uncanny, and it belies explanation. I don't know. That's what that.
Well, I mean, the movie would never have been released after 9/11.
True.
So I mean, the buildings that were blown up were empty.
Yes, yes, yes.
But it's still, you know, too close. It would never have come out afterwards.
It's amazing. We were trying to get you on a little while ago, and some things, our schedules didn't work out. So I rewatched the film again, because I've seen it several times, but I rewatched it again about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I had just forgotten, I mean, I knew I really liked the film, but I had forgotten how much I really loved the film. And there's different ways of making films, clearly, but I love black humor. I love dark humor in films.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think those may be some of my favorite films.
Same with me, absolutely.
Because you can express an idea and still make people laugh. And
Right. You know, Doctor Strangelove to me is one of the great films of all time, and one of the reasons is the tone is impossible, what he did. The tone was absolutely right on this razor edge all the time, and it was perfect. And tone is probably the hardest thing to achieve, which I think Fincher did with Fight Club too.
he did.
That's one of the key things that a director does, is that tone, getting that exactly right.
Tell me about Fincher, the man.
I like to say he fires on all cylinders, in which I mean story, character, visual, audio, structure, everything. He, you know, has it all. A lot of people say, oh, he's this or that, he's visual. No, it's not true. I mean, he's great with story, character. He just comprehends it all and is the master of understanding it and purveying it.
Well, he is certainly a master. I love the film and just the fact that it has touched so many people. And another thing I was just going to ask you about, I mean, when you were writing the screenplay and Chuck Palahniuk had written this book, I mean, did you feel like that it was, wow, I know that you liked it and you were blown away. You've said that you thought the film wouldn't get made. Did you think that if it did get made, it would be a hit? Or were you just kind of, I don't know what's going to happen?
Well, I was basically that I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
You know, I was concerned about whether or not it would be a hit, because I just didn't know how people would take it. You know, it was so unique, and I didn't know how it would be promoted and advertised. And I think probably the trailers were, you know, I don't know if people really got what it was from the trailers that were shown. So I remember when it was about to premiere, I drank in the daytime, which I never do. Because
sometimes there's a time and a place.
I was just so nervous about how it would be received, you know.
It was a risky, well, I don't even know if it's the word risky, it's just, it was such a balls out film to make.
Absolutely.
When I look at the 90s, I think of the 90s being the beginning of the curtains being pulled back for those who wish to see. And that's still going on now, but that's another thing about Fight Club coming out at the end of the 90s that resonates with a lot of people, I think, is, you know, we had the beginning of the internet in the 90s, and so people who are into weird stuff like myself, and I think like you as well, you know, we were already digging and questioning. And then this film came out, and it asks a lot of those questions and expresses a lot of those unresolved sentiments that many of us had at that time. And wow, just a stroke of genius in retrospect.
Wow, thank you, thank you.
Very good stuff. And I will probably watch it a dozen more times over the next few years. I wanted to switch gears a little bit because as a sci-fi geek, it's my favorite genre, film and books. You are working on a new project, the Leviathan. This has an interesting origin that, tell us about how this started.
Well, the director, Roy Robinson, and I had spent some time piecemeal whenever we could get some time away from our gigs. And our intention was for me to work up a pitch and him to do kind of a short reel showing the special effects. And this went on for several years where we just, you know, it was whenever we could get to it, we had our own stuff. It sort of never happened. And then we sat down for coffee one day and he said, look, it's not going to happen unless we just do it. So he said, if you'll write this script, I'll make a real proof of concept, balls out teaser for it. And it was like, okay, go. It was like we gave each other, we gave ourselves a year because we had other gigs.
Sure.
And sure enough, at the end of the year, I had the script, he had the teaser, and he posted the teaser online. And it got a lot of views.
I think it got 1 million the first week.
Yeah, it was very fast, very fast. And then that's when we made the deal with Fox for the project.
I was going to ask you about that because I saw different headlines. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have the legal permission to show that during the show, but there's going to be a link below this so you could see the teaser film that he's discussing about the Leviathan. It is badass. You're going to love it. The stories that I read, I wasn't clear if your spec script had sold before the video or after, or if it was simultaneous. So I wasn't clear on that beforehand.
Right. It was simultaneous. Yeah.
So where are we at in the production line now on this film?
I did an extensive outline for a rewrite because we decided we wanted to approach the story a little differently. And I did that, and everybody's enthusiastic about it, and I've sort of begun the rewrite now of the script. So that's what's happening.
Tell our people who don't know about this what these awesome-looking creatures are.
Those are Leviathans, and they're on a planet Fomalhaut B, which is 25 light years away. This is in the future when there is above light speed travel. And the Leviathans are on this planet, also called, nicknamed Perdition's Flames. And it's
that sounds harsh.
Yeah, it is harsh. In fact, it's a gas giant. It
Yeah.
doesn't have solid matter. And it's plasma, which is a...
Fourth state of matter.
It's, between gas and liquid. And it thickens as you go further down. So there is kind of a sky and then kind of an ocean. And Leviathans are these creatures that they hunt because they extract the eggs from them. The eggs are a natural source of cold fusion. Wow. So powerful, they are how above light speed travel is achieved, how all the colonies, planets that humans are on at this point in time are powered. So it's a very important mission to hunt these and get the eggs. They leave them alive so that they'll
Grow to maturity and create more?
Well, they'll create more eggs. Yeah.
And one twist on this is you said that, at least in the trailer, I'm not going to give away because you can watch the trailer, that the people who are hunting them, they're not really, they're doing that in an involuntary sense. I guess these are probably convicts or something?
Yeah, they are all, in fact, prisoners in the penal system, and they are doing slave labor.
And very dangerous slave labor.
Dangerous slave labor, yeah.
Well, this film looks great, and for me as a fan, what I like about it, as I was telling you earlier, I saw Star Wars over the holidays, just like almost every other human, and I enjoyed it for the particular amount of time that I was in there.
Oh, yeah.
But it was like a nice dessert. It didn't have any lasting effect on me in any particular way, and I'll probably go see the next one as well, but it didn't really have a huge effect on me. And so the business of science fiction in Hollywood right now, I mean, there was just such a huge hype towards that film, and there was a little bit of a backlash to it. I mean, some of the people were disappointed, some people loved it anyway. So there are these existing brand names, and superheroes are the same way, but this is something entirely new. And this is what makes me excited.
Great, yeah.
So you're doing a rewrite. When do you think it would eventually see theaters?
Well, I never answer questions like that. You know?
This is indeed Hollywood.
We, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I hope.
Well, it's got a great name. It's the Leviathan, and listen, it looks like a hit to me, man. I mean, these giant flying creatures and then people trying to harvest their eggs. It just looks really cool. Watch the trailer. You will enjoy it. But
I was just also going to say, Rory is a fantastic director, and he has an Academy Award short, Silent City, which, check it out. I mean, he's really great. And he did all the artwork, so he did the effects.
He did that all himself?
He designed, he's amazing. And, he's also great with story and character and all the stuff, working with me on that.
So how did you guys, were you like having a drink and like, what can we think up? And did you conceive the idea together?
No. He had the idea, this planet and these beasts and this hunt. And originally it was going to follow Moby Dick story pretty closely.
Right.
But we've decided to change that up. But there are still elements of Moby Dick in it. So.
Well, I'm glad because you're putting a little bit extra Jim Uhls on it. I'm sure it's going to be really good. Yeah, because Rory, he did, was it Last Days on Mars?
Yes.
And he's really making it happen in the last decade or so.
Yeah, and you have to see that short. It's fantastic.
Well, we may have to put a link to him in the synopsis as well. There was a question I was going to ask you, because you're juggling all these projects in a town where everybody claims to be a screenwriter. You really are a screenwriter, and you're.
I claim to be one.
Well, you are one, because I mean, how often do people come up and say, "Jim, could you help a brother out and read my script?" Do people hit you with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you deal with it?
Well, I do it, but what I say is I don't know exactly when I'll get to it, and I have been known to take a year to get back to somebody.
I understand that. Hey, at least you're reading it at some point, but
yeah, I mean it depends. I have close friends. They'll give me something. I'll read it really as soon as I can. It's a different thing.
Well, I mean, I feel for screenwriters because it's a tough job, and I understand you put hours, maybe months, maybe a couple of years into a screenplay. You think it's worthy. I mean, I'm not a screenwriter, so it just from the outside, I feel your pain. And what is advice for a person who aspires to do that? What would you tell them to do, starting out?
Well, two things that are the most vital. One is read scripts. Read a lot of scripts. Read, and I say scripts because it might be screenplays for features or television, depending on what the interest is. But read from films that you think are good, from films that are considered great. Read screenplays of films that are considered bad and ones you don't like. Read all that. Read as much as you can, as many scripts as you can. The other thing is write. And the way I would advise it is write a rough draft, a first draft, basically, of your first script. Put it aside. Write a whole first draft of another script, a second script. Put it aside. Write a whole first draft of a third script. Put it aside, go back to the first one. Rewrite it. You're a different person, you're a different writer, you're better, you're bringing a better perspective to it. You're going to see things about it you didn't. And you're really going to approach that first script as a new person and effectively. And then go on and do the same thing with the second and the third. I think people get caught up in rewriting the same script forever. The first one, especially Act One, there's a tendency to write Act One 30 times.
Wow, well I don't envy that. You are in a position where you can pick and choose projects that you want to do, and I recently discovered that you are doing another Chuck Palahniuk piece for television.
Right.
The Survivor. Tell us about that.
Survivor is his second novel.
Okay.
And there have been attempts over the years to try to make it into a feature. I don't know exactly what happened to any of that. now another company has the rights and wants to do a series from it. And at first I wasn't sure. It's a short book. It's 140 pages or something. And,
That is short.
Yeah. It's extremely funny, of course, and bizarre and edgy, but not a lot of really, really in-depth, expansive character development, except for the lead. So I was kind of skeptical about it, and then when I talked to them, they convinced me, it can be approached in any way, and I suddenly saw the light, and I came back and pitched, a take on it, and they liked it, and I'm now working on the pilot.
Is it being made for a particular network, or can you say that or not say that?
Well, actually, it's Alcon TV, and I'm writing it for them, and they're doing it without having.
Understood. Okay.
Which is unusual.
Okay.
To actually have someone write it all the way out to script and then go out to networks. Mm-hmm. It's usually not done that way. It's a great situation.
Well, when you say that it's 140 pages long and there's not expansive character development, the first thing that went off my mind is like, well, that's good for Jim, right? I mean, because you get to now further develop those characters in a way that you wish to.
Exactly.
And bring your stuff to it.
Yeah, and I love working from Chuck's material because it's just so great. It's
well, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but fans of Fight Club and fans of Chuck's are going to be very glad to hear that there is another potential piece out there that you guys worked on together.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I think it can be a series now, and it can be a very interesting one. So.
Well, I haven't read the book, but I started looking into it, and I was like, wow, the premise sounds great. Very, very interesting. And now there's another project that you're doing called The Destroyer, and The Destroyer, I believe, is a 70s comic book character, and you're working on that with Shane Black?
Yes, actually, it's books.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Action books. Okay. Series that goes on and continues. And
kind of a Doc Savage kind of thing, or
right, exactly.
Okay.
And it went on into the 2000s, so it lasted a long time. And the original writer stopped writing it, and then as is done with series like that, they have different writers come on and continue it. And in the early 2000s, the novelist Jim Uhls was brought in, and he did kind of a restart where he started with the origin story with a new, his new take on it.
Sure.
And they started the Destroyer story over again sometime in early 2000. And his writing was just phenomenal, amazing. So I'm writing the script with him. We're working together, and it's wonderful collaboration, and it's very fun to do it.
What I read about this particular character, is his name Remo Williams?
Remo Williams.
Remo Williams. And he is a policeman who perishes and is brought back to life? Is that right? Or?
They fake his execution, and then he's legally dead, but now he's an assassin for a non-existent government agency.
I love it. I like that a lot.
And they did make a movie of it in the 80s, Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. But it didn't go on to become a franchise. But we seek to start something that would be a franchise and be multiple movies going on.
Well, it sounds very interesting to me. You've got your hands full, and you also have this project called Safe House, in which you... Well, tell us what you do with Safe House.
Safe House is a writer's workshop where a collective of writers put up material, and we have a group of actors that are part of it. And they have a short rehearsal period for 10 pages, right? It's about an hour rehearsal. But they put up the scenes on their feet, on book, but fully acted and blocked and everything. And then as a group, we comment on it and give our opinions about stuff and everything, feedback basically. And that's how it works. So it's writers putting up just segments of things, 3 writers per meeting. And So there's not a teacher or anything. It's just a collective, and we are all giving our opinions. And
Well, it probably helps the writer get out of their own head too by having live actors emote the words.
yeah. I mean, even before comments, the experience of having actors doing the material suddenly makes you think of a lot of stuff, about that material, about the whole piece. It gives you ideas. It's really amazing.
And you do that here in LA, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a place called The Office in Santa Monica on 26th Street. It's a place where writers go to work. I mean, you get a membership and you go in, and it's kind of a cross between a library and a coffee house. Everybody's
Perfect.
quiet, but they're, working away, and it's actually very conducive to working to hear other people typing at their computers. But we do it on Monday nights at that place.
You also have we're going to wrap this up, but you also have a line of videos that I've seen that are, is it on Classic Line? I don't know if I have the link.
Creative Live?
Creative Live.
Yeah. I filmed kind of a lecture class with some screenwriters sitting at a table and me having slides and talking. But it's meant for the viewer anytime. It's permanently up on the website creativelive.com. It's the Screenwriter's Toolkit. So that's something that if anyone wants to check out, they can.
Well, that's a wonderful resource. If you are an aspiring screenwriter or just have an interest in how movies are made and how they are written, I would take a look at it. We're going to put all the links to everything we've discussed today below. Jim, you do wonderful work. You are a great guy. I am very fortunate to have been introduced to you via another friend, and I really appreciate you coming on here today.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you had me on.
I love what you're doing. I can't wait to see the Leviathan. It looks like such a kick-ass sci-fi film. And when you watch the trailer, if you don't get a buzz out of that, I don't know what I can do for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it will do very, very well. Jim, thank you so much for coming by. Anything else that you have going on that we didn't get to talk about before we get out of here?
There's a game for mobile.
That's right.
It'll be an app game called Never Leave, but we're still in the process of constructing it. It's like a first-person horror survival puzzle mystery game. It's all that is the genre. But it's you go into the hotel of H.H. Holmes in 1893, where he was America's first serial killer, and designed the whole place to kill people, put bodies down
this was an
chutes.
actual character?
Yes, an actual person. And so it's a game that sort of supernaturally deals with that, but you're kind of caught inside it. And anyway, that's as much as I'm going to give away about it.
I understand. Well, I know that you, and this is probably for the next show, but I just read today that you had done a bit of alternative journalism or alternative media type journalism in the past as well. I mean, you've written everything. You've written for television, you've written for film, you write for stage, and now I find out you write some spiritual type things as well. You're my kind of people.
Thank you.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap this thing up. We're going to get out of here, let the man go home. My name is Michael Parker. I appreciate you watching. If you like what we do here, tell your friends, tell your family, man. Pass this thing around, and let's get more people watching it. Until next week, I ask you, remain optimistic, remain vigilant. You, me, every single one of us, we are the antidote.